Magandang tanghali po rito. Good afternoon and good noon here in Seattle. You know, we're having such nice weather today, and hopefully it's like springtime coming on. Sunshine is up and above. Yeah. Maganda po ang dito at magandang hapon sa inyong lahat at magandang gabi riyan sa Italy and magandang umaga sa Pilipinas. Alvin, go ahead.
Hello, magandang araw po sa magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Siyempre magandang umaga diyan sa Seattle. Kaya naman mga kababayan, gising-gising, Happy Women's Day ngayon. It's March 8, 2021 at siyempre fiesta ng mga kababaihan ngayon sa buong mundo. Dito Rolly, di ba?
Kadedeclare pa lang ng ating presidente yung sinasabi nga nilang supposedly the president. Anyway, yes, alam mo naman, magandang guest natin ngayon.
Napaka-interesting po ng pag-uusapan natin today, mga kababayan. Especially, lalo na't makakatulong, Tito Rolly, yung ating pag-uusapan. Today, we will be having gaya ng nasabi natin kanina, it's about civil legal aid. How can it help people? We'll be having Mr. Chris Lovings.
Yes.
We have all the Lovings in the world today. Community Engagement Manager, yes. And it's from ELAP. Ayan. Napaka... Tito Rolly.
Before anything, before we pass it on to Chris Loving, marami
before we present Mr. Prince, we will be having a song for everybody.
Correct.
So, dahil umaga dyan, Tito Rolly, we have this song for everybody.
Gandang umaga. Go ahead.
Basta tayo'y magkasama, laging mayroong umaga, kay ganda, parang sikat ng araw. Ang liwanag sa ating pangarap. Haharapin natin. Harapin natin.
Rolly, good
Yes,
morning.
haharapin natin. Magandang umaga. Ayan, magandang umaga. Magandang umaga sa lahat at definitely marami nag-iintay dahil ito ay free legal service to all the people. And we would like to introduce our guest today, Christopher Lobbings. Go
Wow.
ahead. Come in, Christopher. How are
Hello,
you?
hello. Good
Yeah.
morning. I guess it's a different time for you, Al. But good morning. Good to see everyone
Good
today.
morning. It's the same here. Hi, Chris. How are you? How's your day?
Yeah.
I'm doing really well. It's a great day. It's sunny here in Seattle. Somewhat. There's like some clouds outside. It's also International Women's Day. I'm really happy to be able to kind of
Yeah.
celebrate the women that are in all of our lives.
Correct. Yeah. I think springtime is coming up, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah.
Here, and we'll be
Yeah.
having a good weather supposedly. Anyway, let's go on. It's a long. It's nice of you to be with us and talk about whatever I would say ELAP can do and what ELAP
Yeah.
is. First of all,
By
go
the
ahead.
way, I would like to
Introduce
ask
yourself.
something
Yeah.
first. Tito Rolly, first, I would like to ask Chris. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Chris, so how's you're working as? Can you please give us an idea of who Chris is?
Who I am? That's such a complicated question.
Yeah.
I work as the community engagement manager for Eastside
Wow.
Legal Assistance Program. I'm really lucky. I've been with the organization for almost 4 years. Actually, this year
Oh,
it'll be 4 years.
right.
A little bit about me, my background. I was born in Hawaii. My dad was military, so we moved around a lot growing up. I lived in 6 different places before I turned 14. He ended up retiring in the mid 2000s in Georgia. And then I want to say in 2017 or so, I actually moved here to the Seattle area. I love it here. It doesn't rain all the time like people think. It just rains a lot. And I really enjoy it here. And a couple of months after I got here is actually when I started at ELAP, which stands for Eastside Legal Assistance Program. So,
That's good.
yeah.
So
Why
does it
East
mean
Side?
this?
Why East Side?
That's a great question. Yeah. So history. So a little bit of a history lesson. Back in 1989, when ELAP was developed, this is for kind of residents that lived in Bellevue, Kirkland, Issaquah, Redmond, cities in East King County. There were a
Yes.
lot of somewhat legal resources in the Seattle area and kind of west of the I-5 corridor, but there weren't as many in East King County. And so a group of attorneys came together and created ELAP back in 1989, and we have kind of just been growing ever since then. So, yeah. And as of right now, ELAP covers just like some other legal aid organizations, we cover all of King County. We offer free legal help and support. We put together legal education kind of webinars, and just want to make sure to help people, that can't afford an attorney to give legal advice and help out with different situations.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
interesting.
So what made you decide to be part of ELAP?
I believe in what we do. It's weird to say that. Sometimes it can be hard to hear that, but I fully believe that if you are passionate about the work that you do, then you should be in a place to where you're able to do that work. And ELAP it definitely does that. It's interesting you asked that because I used to work for the public defender's office when I lived in Georgia. For those that don't know, if you commit a crime, if you allegedly commit a crime, if you are kind of prosecuted for a crime and you can't afford an attorney, that's where the public defender's office comes in. They provide free criminal support for those. And so after I left there and I moved to Seattle, I was like, I don't think I want to be involved with anything legal ever again. Fast forward 2 or 3 months and I'm like working for ELAP. And so, and the reason why is because I believe in the organization. I believe in the staff members and our leadership that we have. And I'm just happy to be able to find a way to support, communities throughout King County.
So,
but you don't go out, excuse me, Alvin, do you go out of the King County area? No.
No, so ELAP specifically covers just King County.
King County.
If people need help and support in like Pierce or Snohomish, we have sister organizations. So in Snohomish County, it's Snohomish County Legal Aid Organization. They do wonderful work in Snohomish County. In Pierce County, there's an organization called Tacoma Pro Bono, and they same kind of thing. They offer free legal resources. In many of the counties throughout the state of Washington, there are organizations like ELAP called volunteer lawyer programs. And so ELAP is a VLP. And so there are many organizations throughout throughout the Washington state that do offer legal resources as well.
So
Go
now,
ahead, Alvin.
okay, so people would like to know now that, especially when I made the poster for this interview today, it's like I put on some civil legal aid, and how can it help people? So like, okay, so
What does that even mean, right?
it's like, does it matter? Will it give me? Will it give me something? It's like. Now, people would like to know what is a civil legal aid, and what does it do to help people?
I'm going to give you a pretty basic example right now. If you are someone who is a renter right now, there's something called an eviction moratorium. That means in the state of Washington, that means that you can't be evicted for non-payment of rent. Without, obviously, there's some caveats there. If you receive an eviction notice during this time, civil legal aid is where you would come to an organization like ELAP and say, I need help with this eviction notice. We offer help with evictions, with things like domestic violence support, immigration, even like debt collection and bankruptcy. That's civil legal aid. And the reason why it exists is because the legal system is incredibly complex. To be quite frank, it was actually set up that way. It's set to disadvantage, community and individuals. And so organizations like ELAP work to kind of help people to solve their legal situations.
So it really does help people in those who are in need.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And I kind of think that what's important to know is that when we're thinking about these civil legal needs, and just to kind of draw a line between the two, where we don't assist with criminal matters. That is where, like, I know King County has criminal defense, and so they actually have a public defender's office here in King County. We handle civil matters, and it's
different. It's not criminal.
It's not criminal. So it's
things
like
personal problems, like mortgage and
things like that, or people that need help with getting a green card. Say, for example, you have a family member that lives overseas.
Immigration.
Yeah, it could be immigration.
Immigration.
Yeah, it could be something like, we offer support for people that need help with their public benefits. Perhaps you have Medicare or Medicaid questions, and you want to know, how can I keep my benefits during this time? That's kind of what the work that civil legal aid does in King County. And I also want to make a note that we're not the only organizations in King County. There are so many other organizations that offer some great support as well. So,
yeah. So ELAP, that's the name. It's the ELAP. So who does ELAP serve? Does it serve only the Americans, or?
Not at all. Anyone who would like our services, provided you live in King County and you are low income. And I don't want to get too bogged down in the numbers, but as an example, financially, if you're 200% or below the federal poverty guideline. So as an example, if you are a household of 2 people and you make less than $2,800 per month, you would qualify for ELAP services. And then I think an important piece, whenever we're talking about finances, to kind of shine a spotlight on, there is a domestic violence issue of community members. And we've heard from different communities about the need to kind of talk about that. And so we recognize that in a domestic violence situation, the abuser can control the finances. And so if someone calls us and says, hey, I'm dealing with a domestic violence situation and I need help, and perhaps their abuser makes a lot of money, we're not going to count that against them. We're not going to count the abuser's income against someone that's coming to us for help. So who we serve tenants, we serve domestic violence survivors, we serve people regardless of documented status, we serve medical patients that are in medical facilities. We have partnerships with a couple of medical clinics, community medical clinics in the area. And so anyone that kind of needs our help and support, we're able to offer support and guidance. And even if people don't qualify financially, we can refer them out to other agencies that may be able to offer, lower cost or sliding scale services.
So definitely, I would say, Chris, you are serving mostly of the below level income bracket.
Yes. Exactly.
So anybody undocumented, documented, U.S. citizen, almost all the people, which consists about 60% of our community.
Is it free? Is it free?
It is all free services. There is no charge associated with anything that ELAP does.
So definitely it would be free because they are they are
Yeah, yeah.
serving the low income.
Yeah, and it's just that some community members just, through bad luck or through
Yeah.
circumstances, they can't afford an attorney, and that's why ELAP exists.
But how do they get? Do they have to call you up? Do they have to talk to you first? And how
Yeah.
do they start the ball
How does
rolling?
it
I
work?
would
How
say?
does it really
How-
work?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good question to kind of go into it. So we'll mention our phone line. This is our hotline. It is 425-747-7274. If you have a civil legal aid issue and you need help and support, you can call that. You'll be speaking with our two lovely intake specialists, Cynthia and Renata. They'll walk you through your problem. And what we offer kind of through that helpline is two main programs. We have legal clinics. This is where you would speak one-on-one with an attorney. We're doing these over the phone right now because of COVID. So you'll speak with an attorney. You would get their advice and counsel about the situation that you're facing. They'll let you know about what you can do, what you can't do. They can give you referrals. They can help you with, maybe you need help, someone to look over an immigration form that you filled out. Does this look right? Cynthia and Renata are able to connect you with those attorneys, and you can have that appointment with the attorneys. And that's kind of one of the programs that we offer, the legal clinic. And then the other one is our housing stability program. And it's something where our whole goal through the housing attorneys that we have on staff with ELAP is to make sure people stay housed. And so that could be helping them to negotiate a payment plan. That could be appearing with you in court if you get an eviction notice. Their whole job is to keep people housed. And so those are the two programs that you can access kind of through ELAP's helpline.
Oh, speaking of helpline,
Yeah.
one of our viewers right now has a question.
Mhm.
And let's see. Can you provide other examples? This is from Mr. Efren Pasqua. Can
Hey,
you
Efren.
provide other examples of other services you can assist the community?
Mhm.
Is it okay to call you if one has question whether you can help them or not?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And so one of the things that ELAP does, if it's something that isn't specifically illegal, but say you need help with paying your gas bill, we can refer to other partner agencies that we work with. As an example, if you live in South King County, Multi-Service Center offers support where they're able to help out with energy assistance. If you live in East King County, it would be an organization called HopeLink that many of you may know of. And so when you call that number, even if it's not legal, we can at least send you in the right direction to connect with organizations that can offer that support. And so sometimes with the work that I do as a community engagement manager, it's people saying, I don't necessarily have like a legal situation, but I need money to pay for rent. I was like, oh, well,
Yeah.
have you talked with, United Way of King County? Have you connected with Catholic Community Services and those organizations and helping to make those connections for people?
So you tend to remind people what they are supposed to be doing first, if in
Mhm.
case they are trying to reach out for questions. How can they be helped, right?
You can reach out to me with any question. I may not have the answer. I may not have the answer. But one of the things I always try to let people know is that I am happy to connect with you to find an answer for that question, whether it's connecting with another organization. If it's not legal related, if it is legal related, then I can connect you with ELAP and our services. So yeah.
So they can ask you questions, financially, legal, help, community help, or anything at all.
Yeah.
So definitely this will help lots of community people.
Yeah.
There's another question I think that one of our listeners,
No,
Alvin,
she's just actually Miss Vicky Navarro is just happy having Chris in our show today.
Yeah, and I want
Vicky
to thank
Navarro.
Vicky. She's incredible. She does so much good work for the community, and I'm happy to see you on here.
yeah. She's one of our avid listener who works also with being a liaison with King County, right?
Yeah,
Chris?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a chance to see her at a meeting last week. And she's incredible.
Especially now that this is pandemic, Chris.
Mm.
Are there issues or challenges that ELAP is facing right now?
Yes,
Especially,
absolutely.
especially now that no people is not able to go out, You cannot check it physically, going to the place.
Yeah, and
And especially they're asking for some legal solutions and explaining it over the phone. I think it's much.
It's
I
so
think
difficult.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. It was much easier because what we would do pre-pandemic time frame is these legal clinics where you would speak with an attorney. It was literally at a community gathering space. So in Kirkland, for example, we would meet at the Peter Kirk Community Center every single Friday, and for 2 or 3 hours, to where someone they have an appointment, they'd be able to meet with the attorney face to face, and they could look at the forms and. The pandemic has changed all of that. And so right when we had the first stay-at-home order back last year around February, March timeframe, we switched over our model to where we still want to be able to provide these resources to people because it's important that people stay housed, that people have their benefits continue, that people have, legal support during this time. And so everything, we had to move everything over the phone. We have interpretive services. And so that can be helpful, but it's difficult. It's hard. I wish I could be in the studio with you both just chatting, and it makes things more difficult. When you're talking about individuals and kind of the challenges that they're facing, I'm not sure if you remember, but last year, there were a lot of different community members that were having problems with unemployment to where they weren't receiving their unemployment checks. It was a big thing. It was a really big problem. And so, we were able to answer some questions about unemployment. We had a webinar where we had someone from the executive director from the Unemployment Law Project come and answer some common questions that people were facing. That's one of the main things that we saw when the pandemic first started. But then with the eviction moratorium, problems such as, I don't have any money coming in right now, so how can I pay rent? And, working with our staff attorneys and volunteer attorneys, just trying to find ways to support those individuals. Maybe it's talking with the landlord if you have a good relationship with the landlord. If you don't, maybe it's working with an attorney to negotiate some kind of a payment plan to where you make sure you stay. It's much harder. Much harder.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's much harder, much more difficult.
Anyway, I think we should play another song. In the meantime,
so we'll be going back with Chris with talking about the pandemic, and we will be having Chris again to answer how's the operations of ELAP right now. So
before answering that, Chris,
answering,
and our listener will hear another song from us. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you.
Kumubiya sekasadya kapalaka. Inginit ko ugma higugma, buhaton kong tanan-tanan, bisan ug magkabuang. Kabaw kung di ka mutagad, ing simple nga magbabalak, apan awit ragyud ang akong mahalad. Ako nang gihatag nimo akong kasing-kasing, ikaw na ang bahala sa pagtipid o pag-amping. Hugti ang pagtuong nga dili kumubiya, sa kasadya kapalaka, kanunay kang may kasangga. I love you langga. Di ko mapulan o paminaw sa imong tingog nga bugnaw, bisan hilig kang Apan awit ragyod ang akong mahalad. Ako nang gihatag nimo akong kasing-kasing. Ikaw na ang bahala sa pagtipig ug pag-amping. Ug hukti ang pagtuo nga dili ko mubiya. Sa kasadya ka balaka, kanunay kang may kasangga. I love you langga. I love you langga. I love you langga. I love you langga.
Another Cebuano song coming from our director here, Alvin. That's one of the dialects, Chris. From
Actually,
it's a
Chris,
happy song. I love it.
yes,
anyway, Chris,
it's
have you been
happens.
to the Philippines?
I have not. I would love to
Oh.
go one day.
It's an island. It's a country composed of 7,000 two islands. So we have
That's so cool.
several dialects in the
Uh-huh.
whole country.
That's so
Anyway,
cool.
yeah, that's one of the dialects
I
in
think
the
you really have to
mid.
try going to
mid-
the Philippines. You really have to visit the Philippines.
I would love to. Hopefully, sometime in the future, when this pandemic is over, I would love to kind of get a chance to
Yeah.
travel more around, especially
Oh
the
yeah, who doesn't
Bingo.
want? Everyone who wants to get out. Yeah,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So,
Yes.
going back, we're talking about pandemic.
Hmm.
So, right now, it's been a year right now.
yeah, yes,
It's
it's
been a
wild,
year.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's 1 week less than a year when we started locking down everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that my last day in my job was March 10,
Uh-huh.
and that's it. I stayed at home. So, and how about it for ELAP?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, and we touched on this a little bit before, it's just having to switch everything over. We did so many things in person because we believe it's really important to find ways to meet with community members face to face in person. And the pandemic has made that so much harder. I mentioned already how we had to switch our legal clinics where we would meet in
Mhm.
community gathering spaces, places of worship, schools, community centers, senior centers. We would meet in person to make sure the attorneys were able to speak one-on-one with individuals. We had to
Mhm.
switch those over to phone consultations, where we give advice and counsel for our legal clinics. Another piece, kind of the work that I've done, has been we have something called Know Your Rights sessions, where we would
Uh-huh.
go to a community gathering space and give legal information on a different topic. As an example, not last year, 2 years ago, we partnered
Mhm.
with the Issaquah Senior Center, where someone from the Benefits Law Center came and
Mhm.
talked about, Social Security, SSI and SSDI. Like, how do those programs work? So we've had to switch those kind of community education events to webinars. And so
Mhm.
over the past, I want to say since April, May of last year, we've had almost weekly webinars where community would come to us and say, hey, we're concerned about this topic. Can you do a presentation? As an example, best example I can give you is this Thursday evening, we're going to be working with an organization, a legal aid organization called Fair Work Center, where we're going to be doing a webinar completely in Spanish, talking about workers' rights. What are your rights during this pandemic as a worker during this time? If you're someone that works at a restaurant or works at a hotel,
Oh.
or like, what are the options that you have? We have one next week with the Statewide Poverty Action Network talking about public benefits. And then at the end of this month, and I would love everyone to attend all of these. But
So you also
definitely-
explain things on different languages.
Yes. When we can, we try to find those that speak in the language of the community that asked the request. And so we had some requests from those, the Spanish-speaking community, about workers' rights. And so we reached out to the Fair Work Center, and they're going to do a presentation on that this upcoming Thursday evening.
But now that you mentioned that you are doing it on webinars, a question,
Yeah.
Chris. Not all senior citizens knows how to use the computer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Understandable. Yeah.
Actually, that's the downside right now, Chris. With the millennials, no problem, but with the seniors, who really needs your help.
So how do you
So
reach out for these people?
This is a really great example. With the work that I'm doing right now, because you're going to tell your community about what's going on. You say, "Hey, there's this
definitely.
legal resource."
Definitely,
Vicky's
definitely.
watching. I know she's definitely connected people with ELAP previously, and we really appreciate that. Now more than ever, working with community-based organizations, working with media such as Film, a journal,
Mhm.
is more important than ever because you have access. I shouldn't say it that way. You have connections with different community members who may not be able to hop on Facebook Live and see a webinar from ELAP, but they know
Yeah.
that they can call you and say, my benefits, like I got a letter from
Yeah.
someone saying my benefits are being cut. What do I do? And you're like, oh, like there's this organization that can help out. Maybe it's Benefits Law Center, maybe it's ELAP. And so it really depends on kind of the community relationship, which is really important during this time. People, in order to survive, we need these connections with community-based organizations, with independent media and things like that. So, yeah.
By
Yeah,
the way,
speaking, going
hard
back to
question.
with
Uh,
yes,
Wait, Chris. The East Side has a business meeting, right? Which they usually hold here at Red Lions in Renton, which I usually attend. Is it? How are you interconnected? The East Side business sector.
Yeah, so a little bit. We have some connections with like the Bellevue Rotary, for example. We've done presentations for them before. I will also say, our development director and our executive director and many of us have been in several meetings to where we're trying to figure out ways to offer support for the community. So we meet in those spaces. I'm really glad you mentioned kind of the business meeting and the idea of there are different coalitions that are still meeting during this time as well. And so a really good example is there's an organization called Nourishing Networks, which has in Eastside cities, Bellevue, Issaquah, Kirkland, Redmond, and I believe they just opened up one in Renton. They meet monthly to talk about community needs, and it's really important that organizations that work with community members are involved in that work so we can work with each other. It's kind of the whole thing that goes back to working within community. You go to these kind of events and you kind of learn like, oh, this community has needs. For example, maybe it's food access. Well, you can connect in Eastside, King County, you can connect with Hope Link. There are different churches and places that offer food, but the only way you would know that is to kind of be connected and involved with community, which is really important.
Oh,
for those who want to be volunteers of ELAP, are there any specific qualification to be a volunteer of ELAP?
At this point, we're not really accepting volunteers just because there's so much that's virtual. It's really hard. Volunteer management can be really difficult. It's just like a lot of work to do. It's a lot of work to do. Yeah, and it's really hard to do that. And I think one of the main things that we've talked about this over the past year is that we don't want volunteers to feel like they're just waiting around doing nothing. And so if someone says, hey, I have these skills and I want to offer that support, I will try to connect them with another community-based organization that may be taking volunteers right now. Unless you're an attorney. Let me back up. If you're an attorney and you want to offer pro bono support, get in touch with me. We always have clients that have different needs, and so connecting with you as an attorney, or maybe you have connections to an attorney, we have a pro bono director who would love to talk with you about ways that you can support ELAP. But as far as general volunteers, we're unable to accept at this time, and we will try to find a way to connect you with other organizations that are accepting volunteers.
Good.
It's like Mr. Efren Fasqua again. And he said, thank you, Chris. As a community liaison and a behavioral counselor, I have clients that sometimes ask me questions regarding other matters. Hope to refer clients in needs to you.
Yes, and please feel free to reach out to me. I know my phone number's on there. I can also give you my email because I would love to chat and also hear what some of those other matters are. If people are dealing with situations, we want to be aware of that, just so, even if it's not legal, so we can say, oh, okay, so we're hearing from these community members that this is important right now. So maybe we can work with other agencies to try to find a way to come alongside people and address those different circumstances. So more than happy to connect.
Actually, here in Italy, I also am volunteering with other communities, especially migration, legal matters. Also,
Mhm.
not like ELAP, like, but are there? Do you? This is quite personal. Do you ever receive any annoying questions from people?
I don't think there is such a thing as an annoying question because it's an opportunity to kind of talk and give like knowledge about things, right?
It's
You
like,
know,
or some people just, why can't he just understand anything that we're explaining to them? So,
yeah,
do you
and
have
that
those stuff?
yeah, and that happens to everybody. Everyone has those. There's like, am I explaining this the right way? Does this make sense? And this is something that's really important. But I think people are asking questions because they want to get that knowledge. And so if we can find ways, what I try to do, kind of being around attorneys all the time, like we have a lot of jargon, like we use like big words like arraignment and yada yada yada. And so trying to explain things in easy to understand language is really important for the work that we do. And so maybe sometimes I'm talking and people don't understand because I'm using fancy words. And so trying to simplify words
Yeah.
to make sure that everyone can understand when we're talking is really important.
Especially some Asian community members, they approach you, but definitely there's always a language barrier sometimes.
Yeah,
Uh,
it can be. Yeah.
yeah, that's possible. So you can refer them to, whoever can speak of their language, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When people call our intake line, we have interpretive services. So in-house for ELAP personally, we have English, Spanish, and Chinese that's
Mhm.
Oh,
spoken by our intake staff. And so if you call
So
and speak those languages, we offer that support. I didn't want to interrupt you, Broly, please.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was
No
going to.
problem.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you speak another language other than that, we can use interpretive services because we understand how much of a barrier language can be if English isn't your first language and you get a letter from a random government agency and you don't know what to do. Being able to speak in your own language is really important to express what's going on. And so that's one of the reasons why we have the interpretive line.
so how
Well,
do you handle?
to tell you
Yes,
the truth, excuse me, Alvin.
yes.
Efren Pasqua works with ACRS. I don't know if you know that
Yeah, yeah,
community,
yeah.
and he's
I
one
actually
of
would
the
like to talk to you a lot, actually. Ephraim, please reach out.
Efren Pasqua is a community leader too. At the same time, a former president of the Seattle Between Lions Club. So to give
Mm.
you a background, he is an interpreter too,
That is
or
really
Filipino,
helpful.
or
Yeah,
Filipino. So I think I'll tell him to get in touch with you
yeah,
if you
please
don't mind.
do. Please do. Would love to
So
connect and kind of learn more about what you're seeing. That's really important.
yeah, to help really,
Yeah.
and he helps a lot when it comes to community outreach program.
Good
So
to know.
that's it. Yeah. Anyway, if we have, I would say definitely aside from this legal services, immigration, and what have you, any
For
anything talking about? Yes, Alvin, do you
I
have
have a
anything?
question, especially for migration.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that not everybody is documented
Mm-hmm. Right.
there, do they have to fear of asking legal help
That
on
is
ELAP?
That is a perfect question. So, just so people are aware, we don't work with the government. It's
Okay.
just so people know. Some people are worried, like, oh, if you reach out to legal help, that means like they're going to contact like USCIS or ICE. We don't work with those entities. Anything that you talk with ELAP is confidential. It's a private matter, so we don't disclose it to anyone. And another important piece is when we're working with anyone really that needs legal help, it's very client centered and focused. What that means is that we won't do anything without getting your approval first. And
Mhm.
so, as an example, if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, my landlord gave me an eviction notice. What are my legal options?" We'll give you the option that, hey, maybe we as the attorney can talk to your landlord, but if you don't want that, that's completely fine. We can find other ways around that. And so it's really important that people understand that we don't work for the government and that the work that we do is confidential to where anything that you share with us isn't going to be like shared with anyone else outside of our
Mhm.
organization.
Especially
good.
right now, talking to the landlords, especially right now that the rental had increased, I think. That
Uh,
people don't have enough jobs to pay their rent, their mortgages. I think it's much greater number right now
yeah, and
asking
then
for help.
and then I think another piece that we sometimes hear when you're thinking about renters, there was something going on in the news about how certain spaces it was said that since there's an eviction moratorium in place, that means that people that previously could pay rent, they're not paying rent right now, and they're
Mm,
like,
yeah,
and they're like, oh, it was a term that was given elective non-payers, which is extremely damaging, and I'll tell you why from the community that we work with and that we've seen, and this is from working with organizations like the Tenants Union of Washington State, the
hmm,
Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, the Washington Community Action Network, grassroots organizations that are working directly with tenants. Some of the tenants that they're working with, they're using the money that they may have had to pay for rent. They're using it to buy medicine, to buy
yeah,
clothes, to get food, and so they're using the money for other material needs that people may not be aware of. And so I think it's important when we're talking about kind of when we're talking about tenants realizing that there are other expenses that may not just be rent that they're dealing with, and trying
yeah,
to offer that support for them is kind of important with the work that we're doing.
yeah. Especially now that for example, I lost a job,
Mhm.
or my working hours is lesser right now, and then
Mhm.
the money I'm earning is just enough for food and
Mm,
medicine.
yeah.
So
Actually, they pass this on
definitely it
to.
would be a problem of paying my rental.
Yeah.
Actually, what I think, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. They, if anybody who calls them up, they whatever problem they pass it on to a certain sister
Mhm.
organization that they have to help the people who call them up, right?
Do you mean as ELAP? So,
Yes,
because
ELAP,
yeah,
ELAP.
so as
Yeah,
a legal organization, if you call a legal question, we can help out with your legal question.
right.
If you're someone that calls, as an example, like say, hey, I can't pay my rent and I need to find a rental assistance agency, we can refer you to organizations like
Mm.
HopeLink, like the Multi-Service Center.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so one thing that we don't want to do whenever someone calls, you never will hear, and if you do, let me know because I want to know. You never will hear us say, "Oh, we can't help you," and that's the end of the conversation. We want to
Ah,
try to find other ways. There may be other organizations. We may say, we're not quite sure. Give us some time to kind of like get some information down. We'll come back to you. I have to do that sometimes too because I don't know all the answers. I rely a lot on kind of other staff members, other community-based organizations, and other leaders in different communities to kind of try to find ways to help people out. And so
mhm.
it's really important that even if we as an organization aren't able to help out with your specific circumstance, that we know someone that can help, and we try to connect you with those places and spaces.
So it's not exclusively for the East Side and King.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Kind of to Rolly's point. If you are in King County, ELAP serves all of King County. If you live outside of King County, there are other organizations, and you can call our helpline. That's totally fine. If you live in Pierce or Snohomish County, and we can connect you with the organizations that are like ELAP that are in those different counties. So,
So you give referrals.
yes, exactly,
Oh, that's
exactly,
important.
exactly.
So Tito Rolly,
Yes.
so here's a question that it's a sort of a project, I think, of ELAP.
Yeah,
What is this civil legal aid public outreach project?
that's another great question. You're full of
So
them.
you also do you still have projects?
We try to. Um,
Oh
I
my
think,
god.
yeah, I think when people hear just legal aid, it can be really confusing. You hear civil legal aid,
Yeah.
and you're like, I just want help, which is totally fair. Like, there's a website, and we did a project. It's called covidlegalaid.org. COVID legalaid.org. And what this
Mm,
is, it's a resource directory for most of the legal aid organizations that are in King County. And so this was a project, ELAP, along with those organizations, we partnered together. And around mid-January or so, the site went live. It has information in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese about, say, for example, you have a question about, like, I got an eviction notice. What organization can I contact? It'll list, ELAP's an organization, but there's also the Housing Justice Project, which does incredible work. There's the Tenant Law Center. There's Northwest Justice Project. There's many other legal aid organizations in King County that offer that support. And so it lists our services. It lists how to contact us. And then kind of for the last question that you asked, on the very back page of the booklet that I'm going to mention in a moment, it has other counties' contact information for the legal aid organizations in that county. And so that is ELAP's website, elap.org. But if you go to covidlegalaid.org is the one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you become more, I would say, bigger organization with this added organization on ELAP.
So COVID Legal Aid is just a specific project. It's actually not an organization. It's a collaboration. I think it's a better way. It's like a collaboration. So there's no organization. It's basically what we did. We kind of worked. We continue to work together, but we put together like a little legal resource directory. And so, Alvin or Raleigh, if you want to scroll to the very bottom of the page, kind of like lists, if you're facing legal crisis, it explains what civil legal aid is. There's a nice little video that kind of explains. And then if you go further down the page, it's separated by different things. So if you're dealing with domestic violence, if you're dealing with sexual assault or housing or other challenges that you're dealing with, if you go to any of those pages, it's going to link you to the different.
This is a really good, and it's a very nice project, actually, especially now that the pandemic and we are on lockdown, the increase in domestic violence.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's been up.
Absolutely. We have domestic violence staff attorneys, and they are hardworking just because it's interesting. You kind of see what happens is as people are kind of contained in the house, for those who are domestic violence survivors, it can be hard to reach out for help. But as things are slowly opening up, you start to see where people can now, their abuser is out of the home, so they can actually call out to organizations like ELAP, organizations like LifeWire, the Domestic Abuse Women's Network, New Beginnings, the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, all these organizations and more. Oh, and API Chaya, cannot forget about them. And Refugee Women's Alliance. There's so many organizations that are able to offer domestic violence support. And so that's why it's really important that people are aware of those resources as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then really quickly, if you click on the download free civil legal aid guide, I actually want to talk about this booklet. Yeah, that one. Right. And so on the website, it's in English and Spanish. English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. We actually printed out 1,500 in English and Spanish that are paper books. I wish I had an example in front of me. I don't know where it is. But they're in paper books, and it lists all the information in one handy little booklet. So my job over the past 2 months has actually been distributing out those booklets in King County. And so people can connect with me. And if you are seeing, specifically, if you're seeing low-income community members, all of the resources that are mentioned kind of in COVID legal aid, they are all free resources. And so if you're someone who may work with different community members and you want one of those booklets, you can find it online, but you also can have a paper copy. And I'm more than happy to pass them out. I've been driving around King County, passing them out over the past couple of months. And so it's roughly 28 pages, but it contains basically all of what our organizations do, ways to contact us. It splits it up in a different organization, into different categories. That's what I'm looking for, different categories. So
that's good. That's good, Chris.
I have to download this. This is worth reading.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would say, Chris, I think I'll get in touch with you and get some, printed copies. So every time we can.
Yes, literally. Actually, this is very helpful for everybody.
I would say, like Vicky has been with us, and she's a member of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So every event that we are on, we're together, like distributing food. The couple distribute food through IMSP, and we have one here in Renton on March 16. So we can use that as a giveaway, which can help people get in touch with you and how to get in touch with you and what they're gonna do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to connect with you, and I'm more than willing to drive. I like driving, actually. Let's listen to podcasts in the car. So I'd love to connect with
One
you
of these days,
6 feet
I know,
apart
join
and give you
join
some
us
booklets.
Yeah, one of these days, March 16, mark it down. If you are free at the Renton Community Center, we will be there distributing a drive-by food event. It's a big one, actually. So hopefully I'll meet you there. And even before that, I'll sit down with you and discuss other things that we can do with the community.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting question again. I think this was answered actually earlier, but then again, sorry, I was late. How do you qualify for free lawyers? Do you accept criminal cases?
Yeah, and it never hurts to review everything. That's totally fine. It's a question I mind answering again. So if you live in King County and you are dealing with a civil, so not criminal, but a civil related issue, you can contact ELAP. Alvin in a second will put up the phone line. The qualification process is you speak with our intake team. They're going to ask you if you live in King County and if you're low income. And low income is if someone, a household of three, I'm going to say two because I know two. A household of two, if you make less than $2,800 per month, you will qualify for our legal services. The more people in your household, obviously, the more that your income will be able to increase, if that makes any sense. And then, so that's how you connect with ELAP. All the organizations in the book are pretty much the same kind of thing. You have to live in King County, most of them. Some of them actually extend out of King County, but I don't want to confuse people. So basically, any of the organizations in the COVID Legal Aid booklet, if you live in King County and you're low income, you more than likely would qualify for their services. Criminal cases, we don't accept criminal cases, but we can refer out to the Public Defender's Office of King County is the best example. They offer support for low-income community members who need support for criminal cases.
Kiko Gasboy is one of the president of the Engineers Association here in Washington. So he's
thank you for the question.
Yeah,
thank you for the question. And you can feel free to reach out to me, and I can also let you know some of the other legal aid organizations outside of King County as well. More than happy.
See, I think we're.
So this is a question. Hi, Chris, from Miss Dolor Excon Delegrado. Hi, Chris. I want to meet you personally. So we can defeat fraud of those organizations trying to illegally solicit on behalf of associations under 501c. Can you refer someone that can help?
Yeah, I guess it depends. So if you are someone who is the victim of a fraud, you should contact the Attorney General's office. It's called the Consumer Protection Outreach Team at the Attorney General's office. They did a webinar with us a couple of months ago that was on like COVID scams, especially like the fake vaccine scams that people may have seen, right? Yeah. And so for those that are kind of dealing with fraud issues, I would refer to them. I also know, my gosh, that's. I can try to find more information. There's a couple of other places, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but definitely the Attorney General's office for dealing with fraud situations.
So Chris really almost know everybody.
No, that is not true at all.
Anyway, let's take a break. And
I think Chris would be the next mayor of Seattle.
I am no politics for me, please. No politics at all.
Anyway, Alvin, I think let's take a break so our listener can prepare more questions as Chris and do his standby. Go ahead, Alvin.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Tito Rolly. Actually, this song would be, I think this one goes to the Ilocanos. Actually, this is another dialect we have. And actually, it's not just dialect. It's almost a language back then.
ti malalagip mo. Nisyak man bilang tikas mo damagen sikat ina at arapa apen.
Siyak dito'y awang pagdanagam kasan serita daytoy ladawang ket kada awag mo't telepono isut dengep daytoy barukong ko
Nagrigaten long distance na ayat Itden na iiliw ken panas Naginad ti oras na aglabas Gapot karayo adi maipapas Alawen agan anus sa biyag ko Idayal mo dayta telepono Rantayan ta ti segaken sugno Tasiksikalat inay ayat ko Uray adayu ka dito'y arpad Kasla asideg ka latakan niya Taday tatimek mo Numanigat umanayen Dungo aliw-liwag
Daydi intugot ko sa pata Inikot awan ti mulit na Ti puso no gayam maulila at adamet Iliw na ken sega
Nagrigaten long distance nga ayat Itden na
iiliw
ken panas Naginag ti oras naglabas Gaput karayo adi maipapas Alawen agan anus ta biyag ko Idayal mo dayta telepono Rantayan ta ti segaken sugno Tasiksikalat inay ayat ko Nagrigaten long distance nga ayat Itden na ti iliw ken panas Naginag ti oras naglabas Gaput karayo adi maipapas Alawen agan anus ta biyag ko Idayal mo dayta telepono Rantayan ta ti segaken sugno Tasiksikalat inay ayat ko Tasiksikalat inay ayat ko
Yes, another Ilocano song, one of the dialects in the Filipino It means long distance call. Angat, ayak.
Kind of like
It's
we're
a
doing right
long,
now.
long distance way. That's how it's. I can explain that, Chris. Anyway, so much so with this all this thing about legal issues, Chris. It's really, I think, we can invite you one of these days in our meetings here.
Actually, Actually, I still
Here.
have a question to
Go
Chris
ahead.
before
I
we.
mean, no, before anything. Yeah, yeah.
No. We've been talking for about ELAP. How does it work? And maybe I can go back and having a question to Chris personally.
Okay.
Have you been attached to or emotionally to certain issue or problem being handled by ELAP?
Yes, yes. I think one of the main ones, kind of right now, is housing rights. About how housing is a human right, and how making sure that people stay housed is incredibly important. From the studies that many have done over the past several years, showing that when people are housed and don't have to worry about housing, it affects their mental well-being. I think a little bit touches home with me. I was never in the experience where I was, worried about losing my home. I'm privileged in that way. I come from a family that was middle class. I was really lucky, never really had to worry about that. But knowing how difficult it can be to move from place to place to place, and shorten the timeline for someone who is kind of having to move from house to house because they can't pay the rent. Their kids are having to move from school district to school district, and how difficult that can be. It's a really important issue to me, and that's why a lot of the work, that I also do alongside ELAP is working with partner agencies and collaborations. I mentioned some before: Tenants Union of Washington State, Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, Washington Community Action Network, that's focused on providing further renter protections and kind of helping out with those situations. That is a very long answer to your question.
Does it ever happen to you? For sometimes on my side, no. Does it ever happen to you that, oh God, I wish I was that rich that could help all these people asking this help?
Yeah, definitely. It's like I wish I would. It's always like sometimes you wish that you could do more. That's definitely
Mhm.
something that I feel like a lot of us in social service agencies are kind of like, how else can we help? Like, what else can we do to come alongside community members and help to uplift community members? Because there's a problem, right? If you kind of go into like the savior complex where you're like, I'm
Mhm.
here like to save you and puff out your chest, and that's not how things work. That's not how things should be. You should come alongside community and find ways to uplift them and work alongside them so we can address the structural issues that are facing kind of our communities.
Yeah, being a
Uh,
community liaison officer, I would say you have that heart. Sometimes it's really hard. And how do you really take these things as they come by?
yeah, how do you handle those such uh, emotionally distressing?
It's a lot of work, but I think it's also kind of paying respect to those that have come before you in doing this work, in our elders in the different communities. I'm really, really lucky. I work, my program director is someone in Esperanza Borboa, and she has taught me so much about community organizing and what it looks like, and how to make sure that we're not coming as saviors to communities. I think that's really important. Another important piece that I know a lot of people, you hear a lot, is self-care. Because I have seen friends that have been doing this work for so long, but they get burnt out. And it's really sad because you kind of see someone who is passionate about the work, and just over time, it's harder and harder. And because, they may not be unable, but they're not in the proper space to kind of give themselves self-care and take care of themselves. There's a phrase I heard a long time ago, something like, I'm drawing a blank on the phrase, which is bad. Something like, you can't. I'm not going to say. I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not going to bother saying it. But the whole point of it is that you have to take care of yourself sometimes before you can help others. And so I'm
Yeah.
really lucky for me that I have a fiance that's wonderful and it's really helpful.
Do you
And
do
like,
post stress, something like that?
I haven't had to do that at this point, but I do know that therapy is really helpful for people, individuals. I feel like that's something that's really needed. The organizations
I
that are
think
offering
it's
that
it's
kind of
quite
therapy.
toxic being on your plate on your shoes. I think it's so toxic actually.
How so? Can you tell me more? No,
Anyway,
yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily toxic. I don't know if that's what I would say, but it can be draining. That's a good word for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
right
yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah. It can be
Thank
draining.
you for correcting me. It's
Yeah, no
draining.
worries. No worries. I just want to make sure I understood you.
actually, Chris, sometimes, having all these things as a community leader, I would accept you as a community leader already. Not
Oh,
only the community liaison, as you come by to so many communities, the Latinos, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, and Filipino at that. I'll include you now as a part of the Filipino culture here in Washington State. I would say, isn't it, the more you meet people, the more you get the big heart of helping them?
yeah. I first of all, I love meeting people. That's my personality anyway. But it's really good to kind of have more of a well-rounded picture of what's affecting different communities because
Mhm.
not everyone has the same issues. With the work that we do with the Latinx population, we work with some undocumented communities, which is completely different from the work that we hear from organizations like Mother Africa that offer support for immigrants or those that are asylum seekers. It's kind of learning about the differences and ways that we can try to address because there's no one solution. If there was one solution for all the problems,
Correct.
like we'd be hanging out like doing something else, right? And
Mhm.
so trying to find ways to come up with solutions alongside community members is really important, especially for the different communities. There are so many scattered throughout the King County area. I think it's really important to kind of learn what the issues are and come to the table and say, hey, how can we kind of come alongside you in helping to solve these issues? Because communities do know the answers to their solutions. It's just sometimes organization, places, governmental entities may not ask them. Or if they ask them, they actually don't use the knowledge that they've been given to actually affect change in those communities. So
Correct. That's really the problem. The connection of all these things, because some people cannot just express themselves. They don't know how to ask it. That's a big problem here right now. And some community members cannot connect to these people right away. So there must be something like what you're doing, really, that helps people around the whole Washington state, I would say.
So
So you're very important to us, Chris.
thank you.
So that's one way, really, to adapt to each other, and that's how we always feel right now, because during the pandemic, we always see people having problems, having lockdowns, having all these things,
Mhm.
and we have to interconnect. But because of meeting in person, we are having more problems, isn't it?
Yeah,
mm,
yeah. And so, I'm curious as a community leader, the work that you're doing, Rolly and Alvin, how are you kind of working through that with your communities? Not being able to meet in person. What have you been able to kind of? I'm looking to learn myself. Like, what have you been able to do that's been helpful for your community?
Yes, like us right now, Kopao. I'm trying really to meet since we can meet. We have, oh, actually, I meet my board members since there are only 9 board members.
Mhm.
We make it a point that we meet person to person. Being a small group, the board members, not of course the whole organization, but there's nothing like talking in person to each and everyone, because there is more connection than having the virtual meeting. Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm right.
mm.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why even you, we can meet together, have a coffee or so in one of these days, so we can talk more, because
Yeah.
we have a lots of things to talk.
Yeah.
But since we have a few more minutes to go, I would love
Yes.
to. I would love to include you in another time, I would say,
Yeah, I
isn't
would
it?
love to.
So
Okay.
our listeners can know more what ELAP can do for them,
Yes,
right?
and we will also be promoting ELAP on our Facebook page, and also every time that the COFAO and INSP have projects together, they will be getting most of those booklets
Yeah, I
that
would love that.
so they can also disseminate every information they'll be needing,
Yeah.
especially on the King County side, I think.
Yeah, I would love that. Let's do it.
But
Yes, we will. We will. We will. I promise you
yeah,
that.
definitely. So,
Anyway,
Chris, thank you very much. But before I let you go,
Mhm.
just a question.
Yeah, please.
Last question to close and wrap up the
Okay.
things. So, how did ELAP change your perspective in life?
That is not an easy answer. The last question is the hardest one to answer. I think, a lot of times, I think we talked about this a little bit, growing up in a military family, moving around a lot, I had a perspective on life that a lot of people, when I would go to different places. So we lived in Hawaii, we lived in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Iowa, Illinois, Tennessee for a little bit, and then down in Georgia. You get to see different parts of the U.S. and you recognize how different regions can be. Even in Washington State, as an example, if you're here on the west side and you travel over the mountains to the east side, it's a different kind of atmosphere and a different kind of culture. And so one of the things that ELAP has afforded me is the opportunity to kind of learn from so many different organizations, community members, community leaders, and seeing how different things are, but there's still something in common with us, and that many of us are fighting to address injustices, whether it be in the legal system or the food access system or the immigration system. Many of us are fighting to make the world a better place, and that's what is important, especially for those that come after us, because the work we're doing now paves the way for those that are coming after us. And I think that's really important to kind of pay attention to. And that's in the perspective, to answer your question, that's the perspective that I've been able to kind of learn more about being with ELAP.
good answer. Anyway, maybe have your last word before you go, and hopefully I can.
So you can also invite them.
Yeah, I think in the social service agency world, I think one of the last things I'm going to say about that is that some of us, we need to work to end some of the structural injustices that we see. It isn't enough to, continue to, that's it, the right way. It isn't enough to just continue the status quo, to where we're trying to make sure people stay housed, that we're trying to do this. Why not try to address the big things that need to change to make sure? So quite frankly, a really good example, there's someone that works in Auburn. And when I first met him, like one of the first things he told me is like, I'm trying to work myself out of a job, because when his job no longer exists, that means that the homelessness crisis is over, because it's finished. And I think that's something that we should all strive for, is to work ourselves out of these social service agency jobs. I would love just to walk around, meet people, and chat about random stuff without having to but having to think about, there's a client we're working with that's dealing with ICE has raided this place, and it's like we have to work with the immigration, or there's a domestic violence concern that's happening, with this community member. So how can we do it? Working ourselves out of a job and addressing these things that need to change is supremely important, and that's the work that we all should try to do.
Good. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Chris, and hopefully our listener has learned so many things about ELAP, and definitely we'll get in touch more often, and we'll invite you another time so we can discuss more what ELAP can do for our listeners, for the community, for the whole, I would say, not only in the eastern side, but on the western side of our state, I would say.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Raleigh and Alvin, thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you
I
very
really,
much.
really appreciate it. Thank you to the listeners who are
One of the
chatting
most
in.
human person I've met here online, Chris Loving.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
He
Everyone
has
have a great
all
rest
the
of the
love
day.
in the world to share.
Yes. Even his last name suggests
Yes.
something. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All you have
It's
to
so
do-
very warm and welcoming, Chris Lovings.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. It's the first time I've done a podcast like this, kind of live. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
And before anything, we'll go for another song. I think our
I guess.
here, another song for our listener, and then we'll greet those. By the way, Chris, do you have somebody to greet during the program, like happy birthday to your friend or something?
I'm going to give a shout out to Joe
Good.
Rolero.
Yeah,
Joe
Go.
Rolero, and then my fiance, Junie Lee. I love her very much.
Nice.
Of course, love it.
He's taken.
What did she ask for? You
He's
have
already taken, girls.
Yes, very much taken, yes.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
so thank you very much, Chris. Till then, thank you.
Go ahead, Alvin.
May minamahal, bawat taong may damdamin may minamahal. Tulad mo at tulad ko, nakadama sa isa't isa ng pag-ibig. At ngayon'y nagmamahalan ng tapat. Pag nagmamahal, bawat sandaling kasiping kay anong bilis. Bawat oras ay mayroong kasaysayang anong sarap, anong tamis. Maligaya nga ang taong nagmamahal. Kaya't ako'y napaligaya ng tunay mong pagmamahal. Ang lahat ng kagandahan ay nasa iyo. Ningning ng mata, lambot ng labi, at ugaling walang kapintasan na babalot ng halindog katuwang tunay. Pag minamahal, kulay rosas ang paligid ko sa tuwi-tuwing na nakayapak sa ulap, buong mundo'y nagagalak na mayroong nagtatalik na dalawang pusong nagmamahal. Kaya tayo'y magpasalamat sa ating kapalaran. Nasa atin ang kaganapang hinahanap ng bawat nilalang na may puso rin, dahil tayo'y hindi magbabago hanggang may buhay. May minamahal, bawat taong may damdamin may minamahal. Tulad mo at tulad ko, nakadama sa isa't isa ng pag-ibig. Kaya't habang may pag-asa kayo, humanap ng pag-ibig na totoo, sakalang liligaya. Kung mayroon ng tunay na minamahal, may minamahal, bawat taong may damdamin ay may minamahal. Tulad mo at tulad ko, nakadama sa isa't isa ng pag-ibig.
May minamahal, may minamahal. Siyempre, Tito Rocky, ikaw ay may minamahal na one and
Siyempre,
only.
one and only. And nakikinig siya ngayon, si Tess. Anyway, may minamahal si Chris Loving. Alam mo naman yung guest natin sa apelyido pa lang, di ba? Kaya, anyway, meron tayong mga babatiin sa mga ating nakikinig. Yan na si Efren Pascua, Duin Dumlao, at Ruchi Barcelona from Lakewood, Washington. Of course, may one and only Tess Ramos. Yan ang-
Ayan, gusto ko naman batiin si Tita Dolores Conde. Ayan, siyempre. At
kaya,
saka si Ruchi Barcelona.
yes.
Ayan. Manong Efren Pascua, kanina yung kanta na pang OFW daw kanina. Pero long distance. Ayun. So, at saka, syempre, kay Sir Dwayne Dumlao, kay Sir Kiko Gaspay, kay Maria Linda Nugid Aguila. Hello, buongiorno po sa inyo. Ayan.
Ayan Abid. Anyway, I would like to call on everybody kasi yung Charisma Church in Linwood,
Ayun.
meron silang backpack giving, grocery bags giving away sa March 27. Dito yan sa 18820 36th Avenue, Linwood, West Linwood.
Ayan. We want to invite you and all Filipinos to our Charisma Church.
Yeah.
Ayan. On March 27. Ayan, anong
Ayan.
mangyayari diyan?
Parang drive-by na dati kasi every year they give out backpacks. Alam mo naman yung pencils para sa mga bata,
Oh, that's nice.
notebooks, pad papers, naka-backpack yan. Ang tawag nila backpack giveaway.
Oh, wow.
Nakabag na yan sa bawat isang But they serve, marami. They serve hotdog during that time. They serve, kaya we try to support them. Yung Lions noon, sinusupport to give out naman yung reading glasses para ngayon being COVID, sabi nila, grocery raw ang pamimigay nila.
Ayan. So, napakaganda naman. Ang swerte-swerte dyan kasi ang daming nagvo-volunteer, ang daming mga nag-share na mga tao. Kaya, by the way guys, syempre, bago tayo magsara, kailangan naman tayo makapagbigay din ng mga konting balita mula sa atin dyan sa Pilipinas. So,
what's the from the Philippines?
alam mo ba, Tito Rolly, syempre, mula rin na naman sa DFA ito, marami pa rin pala talagang na-stranded na mga seafarers.
Department of Foreign Affairs.
Yes po, Department. Talagang marami pa rin talaga silang, marami pa rin pala talaga yung mga marino ba? O yung mga seafarers.
Merchant
Diba?
Marines.
Oo, so mga crew members of a Norwegian cruise line ship, Norwegian Joy, the seafarers were flown on 2 chartered flights and are currently quarantined at a Savoy Hotel, Manila Holiday Inn Express. Isipin mo naman yun, talagang kahit saang may Pilipino, talagang pinagsisilbihan pa rin talaga ng gobyerno, no?
Correct. Yung gobyerno naman natin talagang sa ngayon, malaki na tinutulong. Marami ring pumupuna. Ayoko sabihin na binabati ko pumupuna, pero wag na natin punahin. You know what I mean? Tulungan na lang natin kung pwede.
Yun ang maganda. Tulungan na lang natin ang gobyerno.
During this pandemic, we should act as one, isn't it?
Yes.
Why do you have to contradict whatever the government says?
Yeah.
Let's work together. Yan ang importante. Like our guest right now kanina, you know, why all like his surname says, Labings. You know, Chris Labings has been so good, discuss everything about legal services, but his name alone, you know, gives something meaning to everybody.
Yun nga po mga kababayan, minsan sa pagdating sa mga leadership, napakadaming asosasyon, napakadaming grupo. And then hindi mo naman minsan kasi ganito, nagsasama-sama silang ayaw nila sa gobyerno. Talagang minsan napuno rin ako, Sabi ko nga kung magrereklamo rin lang naman kayo at wala kayong solusyon, anong silbi nun? 'Di ba? Wag na lang magsalita kasi away rin lang naman pala Kaya nga sabi ko nga, especially may mga reklamo sila tungkol sa embahada, sa mga consulate, kesyo mahirap ang mga appointments ng mga passport, renewal ng OWA, renewal ng ganito. Ang sabi ko nga sa loob-loob ko bakit? Pilipino lang ba ang apektado? Halos lahat ng embassies and consulate abroad at hindi lamang naman mga Pilipino, buong bansa. Iba't ibang bansa ay apektado ng appointment system, no?
Ang buong mundo, hindi lang bansa.
Buong mundo, di ba?
It's like being one at this time of pandemic.
Yes. Kaya sabi ko nga, kung magrereklamo kayo sa mga embahada natin, bakit hindi na lang kayo mag-ask kagalang-galang ng mga embahada o mga konsulado, ano bang maaari namin bilang mga community leaders po, ano po bang maaari naming maitulong sa inyo? Di ba?
Correct.
Para mapagsilbihan natin lahat ang ating mga mamamayan. Di ba? Yung iba kasi, galingan, kasi yung iba sigaw ng sigaw, galingan nyo kasi dyan, magtrabaho kayo. At ang nakaka-offend pa doon, hindi ko alam kung paano nila nasasabi na sumisigaw sila sa mga tao dun sa loob na pinapasweldo namin kayo. Parang sabi ko, teka, ate, mali yata. Parang hindi naman.
It doesn't mean when these people, ask for something, they get.
They are also human. They are also working, di ba?
Everybody right now is working so hard
Yes.
because of the pandemic. Kaya nga, kailangan let's help each other, be united, and love each other. Yan lang ang isang masasabi natin, hindi ba?
Opo.
Kaya,
Sabi ko
kaya-
mag-ano na lang tayo, magbigay na lang tayo kasi ng tulong. Kasi alam nyo, makikinabang kasi dyan is yung mga kababayan din natin. Di ba? Kaya kailangan talaga, if we are parang, why take violence? Why take ganun? Yung ganung karsada yung ating gagawin. Ano? Tapos ang isa pa rin magandang balita ngayon, syempre, Tito Rolly, 8 March is the International Women's Day. Again, tayo mga OFW, DFA uli, sinabi natin, itong maganda kasi dito, syempre, there's a lot of Filipinas abroad, and we are celebrating women's achievements, tackling continuing issues of disparity. Yan. Hindi ayan ay hangga't hindi natin nagiging malinaw sa lahat ng tao kung anong disparity, ano ang discrimination, 'di ba?
Correct.
Ayan, kailangan yan ay kahit yan ay araw-araw pag-usapan para lang malaman ng lahat ng tao na mali yun, 'di ba? At syempre, yun ding reinforcing our commitment to a future that works for everyone. 'Di ba?
That's it. Yeah. And today,
Kailangan mas mapatibay natin yan lagi.
today
Diba?
is the day. That's the celebration of International Women's Day. March 8. Ngayon, ngayong araw na to.
Opo. Ayan, kaya naman ano bang sa US ba ano bang ginagawa nyo pag
merong proclamation yung ating administrasyon ngayon na pinoclaim nila, pero there's no such big celebration, but it has been proclaimed today na yan. Kaya yung Women's International Day today, March 8.
Yes, it's a commemorate the 1911. Ayan, thank you. Ayan. Siyempre, nako, isang buwan yan. Actually, hindi lang naman. Salamat na ganito, pero dapat araw-araw nating minamahal sila.
Yeah. But in the Philippines, do you know, yesterday, next weekend pala. Next weekend, merong proclamation ang ating presidente na it's the 500th year of Christianity in the Philippines. Kaya ang Pope naman mag-celebrate din na magmimisa siya sa Roma. Yan,
magmimisa po siya dito sa Roma at para i-commemorate ang 500th year of Christianity.
Ang Pilipinas.
By the way, para po sa kalaman ng lahat, nung isang araw nasa sa Iraq ang ating Santo Papa, sa mga Katoliko nasa Iraq.
Nung Sabado.
Di ba? Oo, kasi tinutukan ko yan nung pumunta siya doon. Sabi nga namin dito, kita mo kung ganong ka-peaceful yung lugar, ganong ka-disiplinado yung mga tao. It was just so unfortunate of what happened of these wars. Napaka-unfortunate. Walang may gusto ng gyera. Pero syempre, buti na lang may Pope na he can cross the lines. Diba?
Tsaka yung peace-giving.
Yung peace-giving na, diba? Pinapahalagahan pa rin, Kaya nga, kung ikaw ay mabiolenting tao, siguro nga talaga hindi ka tsaka siguro hindi 'yun pagmamahal eh. 'Di ba? Kung nagiging violente ka dahil sa pagmamahal, hindi ka nagmamahal. Kasi violente ka eh. Nakakasakit ka. There's no love in violence, 'di ba? Ayan. Tsaka yun nga kanina yung pinag-usapan na domestic violence kasama si Chris kanina, no?
Yeah.
Marami talaga nag-increase yung domestic violence.
During the
Nakakaawa din
pandemic.
talaga yung mga kababaihan na naiwan sa mga mapang-abusong mga kapartner, asawa man o ka-live-in o kung hindi pa man. Pero syempre yung mga pag-abuso sa bahay, di ba? Yung mga anak na naaabuso sa bahay, nasasaktan.
Sa totohanan, Alvin, hindi ba
Those are
sinasabi
domestic
natin,
violence.
yung babae, minamahal dapat, hindi
Mhm.
sinasaktan.
Oo.
Yan ang isang ano ko eh.
Kaya nga, kung ako sa'yo, Tito Rolly, nagdagdag ka pa ng nagdagdag.
Ikaw lang. Hindi naman. Alam mo
Ay,
naman
hindi
ako,
naman, hindi naman.
one and only.
One and only.
Ano eh.
There's no wrong in loving.
Oh,
No.
mahalin nyo lahat. Pero yung isa talaga na isang aalagaan nyo, pag tuunan na nyo ng pansin. Gaya
Ayun
mo,
po.
Alvin, iisa-isa na lang yan.
Kaya,
Pati yung biyanan, kailangan inaalagaan nyo.
ayan. Siyempre lahat, alam nyo, tsaka yung siyempre yung mga nanay natin. Sabi ko nga,
Kasama yan
maraming,
sa Women's Day.
marami tayong tawag sa isang babae. Nandiyan ng ate, di ba? Sister, ano no?
Gusto patiin pa yung mga ating ibang nakikinig dyan. Si Vicky Navarro, Shell
Ay, sinabi.
is watching from
Yes.
Shoreline. Si Kiko Gaspay, isa ring
Mhm.
yung mga announcement niya, lumipas na yung pero meron pa siyang mga dadating na announcement sa March 27.
Yes, especially mga meetings ni Sir Kiko Gaspay, marami mga meeting pa yan. Oo. Sa totoo lang, alam ko yung may meeting sila ng March 12, Sabado yon, 7:30. First quarter general membership meeting. Ayan. Ayan, may mga meeting pa po ang APU. Ayan. Tapos syempre mga kababayan. By the way, mga kababayan, kamusta naman Tito Rolly Dian ang mga COVID vaccine? Kamusta na? Nakita ko kasi sa picture ni Tita na yung sa IDIC nagsimula na.
Hindi. Nagsimula sa FCS, sa Filipino Community Center in Emerald King the other weekend, and then at IDIC last weekend, and then there will be another one. Yung second dose will be on April 3. Kaya ganyan. Vaccine has been going on right now, kaya magpasaksak na po kayo kung gusto nyo. Pero
magpasaksak. Magpaturok lang.
Kasi hindi lahat, Alvin, can really carry the brunt of having that vaccine. Kaya we're doing this voluntarily, kaya hindi natin nire-require sa sa buong community. But if possible, kasi meron tao na pag nasaksakan na emergency, let's be cautious about all these things.
Pero sinabi rin naman nung kasama nung huli nating napag-usapan na ang worst case scenario na epekto ng vaccine ay kung wala itong epekto. Parang alam mo yung parang pinaasa ka lang, nagagaling ka pero hindi pala. yun yung masakit doon
It doesn't mean anyway.
By the way, Tito Rolly, ayan. Nung huli, ito po yung mga nangyari last time.
Yeah.
Last weekend.
We had a big distribution last weekend, and we have so much to give. Kaya
grabe, ang dami
grabe. But on March 16, don't forget, at Renton Community Center here at Maple Valley Highway.
Ang galing ng ginawa nyo dito, napaka organized to, Tito.
Very organized yan. Though kukunti ang volunteers, talaga nahirapan kami ni Tita Dolor at ni Andrew at ni Rochelle. Kaya yan, ISP has been supporting us with, of course, our matriarch, Brandy Badger.
Grabe, ang dami nito Ilang libo to?
Marami yan. Kasi ang isa is 350 boxes, so there were about 18 pallets that came in. Plus, of course, other things like squash, milk, eggs, everything.
And other informative
plus, of course, si Vicky Navarro.
Navarro.
Yung sanitizer.
Yes.
Kaya marami kayong makukuha definitely. Kaya
Mhm.
medyo
Ayan, no?
ulan pa nga during that time. Kaya
Ayan.
medyo nakabalot at malamig sa Snoqualmie, being up there, I would say. Mataas kasi ang elevation niyan. Kaya ganyan.
Grabe.
But don't forget, we will be at Renton Community Center sa March 16. Ayan.
Yan, Tuesday, March 16 po, from 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. City of
Yes.
Renton Community Center sa
Incorporated.
Maple Valley Highway, Renton.
Ayan.
Ayan, cooperation of INSP, the
Eto,
Renton and COFAO. Ayan po.
sama City of Renton.
Ayan,
dyan.
para naman para sa mga
Mayor,
kababayan natin, you should feel how does it
alam mo
feel.
naman si Mayor Alvin, si Mayor Armando Pabone has given COPAO as a partner already, officially.
Ayan.
Pagdating
Isipin
sa
niyo yun,
Renton. Oo.
Maganda yan, maganda. Kaya, Tito Rolly,
ang
ako,
accolade ng COPAO yan, being a part of the City of Renton.
ayun. So tuloy-tuloy pa rin diyan ang serbisyo, pamimigay ng mga volunteer ng pagkain, bukod pa rin yung mga information tungkol sa COVID.
Yes.
Ano nang status niyo din sa COVID? Halos lahat ba nabakunahan na or ano ba 'yan? Ito muna, bara-barangay.
Nasa 30% pa lang dahilan talagang yan binibigyan tayo ng mga phases kung kailan.
Yes.
Dahil senior citizen pa lang ang binibigyan ng and it's free. Alam mo ba yon?
Ay, free dyan?
Free.
Ay, grabe.
Kaya nga maganda. They are furnishing the Pfizer vaccine right now. Kaya may second dose. Hopefully yung Pfizer at Moderna may second dose. Hopefully Johnson will come in too. Anytime. Yan ang magandang balita about COVID.
Ayan. At saka para naman sa mga Pilipino sa Pilipinas, bago natin tapusin to, alam nyo, ang Department of Health ng Pilipinas, syempre may mga bida program. Kailangan din mga kababayan ay vini-visit natin kung mga nakikinig sa Pilipinas, at sa ibang mga Pilipino na yan, for curiosity, kailangan nyo rin naman syempre i-visit ang mga government agencies natin kung ano na ba ang mga ginagawa nila. Para hindi tayo kritiko na wala silang ginagawa. So tignan natin kung may mga website naman sila, may mga information dissemination, tulungan natin sila. For example, ngayon ang issue sa the DOH, So ano ba maitulong natin sa DOH? Syempre ikalat kung ano mga tamang impormasyon. Kagaya ng Tito Rolly, i-share natin na bida. Yan, bawal, walang mask. O, di ba? Ayan, you can like and share the official DOH love, di ba?
Sa Philippines, not only the mask, pero kailangan may shield ka.
Yes, opo. So ito yung basically po mga kababayan, yung mga inaano natin na ipinopromote ng ating Department of Health. At marami po pong iba kasi ina-adjournamento. Ano ba yung adjournamento? Lagi nilang binabago, ina-update yan. So B, bawal, walang mask. Ayan. Sunod naman ay i-sanitize ang mga kamay. O, di ba? O, yan. Para iwas hawak sa mga bagay. Ayan. O, tapos anong sunod? Para bida ka. D. Ang D, dumistansya ng 1 metro. Di ba? O.
That's hindi lang sa Pilipinas, kung hindi dito rin. We have to follow yung pandemic ruling na sinasabi.
Ito naman po para sa mga Pilipino. Ito basically yung mga standard na dapat nating ginagamit. At syempre, ang pinaka-importante, para bida ka, alamin ang totoong impormasyon. Yun po ang isa sa pinakamalupit dun sa lahat. Kaya dahil pag may tama kang impormasyon mula sa mga tamang tao, talaga na bang alam mo yung bidang yan.
Lalo-lalo na sa gobyerno. Make sure that get is really from the government. Bida.
Yes.
Bida ka.
Yes po. Bawal ang walang mask, i-sanitize ang mga kamay, dumistansya po tayo, at alamin po ang mga tamang at totoong impormasyon. Kasi napakadelikado po talaga ngayon ng social media kasi marami pong gumagamit ng mga abusado. Lalo-lalo na at nauso itong pagkita sa social media, no? So lahat ay kumukuha ng pansin, kumukuha ng atensyon. Dahil bawat atensyon na kinukuha nila, gusto nilang kumita. Ano? Kaya minsan kahit walang kakwenta-kwenta, ipopost nila para makakuha lang ng pansin.
Itong ginagawa natin, community service to eh.
Yes.
Pasok na kita.
Yes.
So much so at
Ay, babati lang ako batiin ko lang ito,
greet your friends.
Yes, batiin ko lang po si Miss Sally Escopete Espina. Alam nyo, naging suki na po natin yan. Ano? Sila po yung mga makapag-visit ng Roma. Gusto mong video o visit. Ako yung minessage niyan. At ang sabi ako daw ay kumain doon kasi may kalderetang kambing. Doon sa kanila sa Kalatug Pinggan. Ang sarap din ang lomi doon. I-message ako ng isang araw. Sige, on the house. Isama mo ang iyong amore. At ikay kumain doon. Gusto ko lang ka.
Punta namin dyan sa Roma.
May pagpunta nyo dito ay talagang kakabisit kayo sa kanila.
Diba?
Si Tita Arlene Perez. Ayan. Hello, Tita Arlene Perez. Maraming fake news to make money. Yan nga po.
And there are scams going on right now.
Ay, marami mga scam. Mga kababayan, alam ko crisis ngayon, pero wag po kayong maniniwala sa mga instant yaman. Wag po kayong maniniwala sa instant yaman dahil tayo po na mga nagtagal na sa abroad, alam po natin kung gaano kahirap kumita ng pera. 'Di ba? Lalo.
Hirap at pawis.
Anyway, sabi nila hindi daw ako dumating kasi para pagpunta ko dalawa ng binalot kasi pag ngayon hindi ko pinunta yung dapat kakainin ko. So pagpunta ko doon sa Kalatog Pinggan, yung next day may balot na ako. Dalawa na.
Swerte mo, naging dalawa.
Tsaka maraming salamat siyempre kay Maria Erlinda Nguwid. Ayan, siyempre
I agree with you.
Enacting in unison, but I cannot blame those who criticize the government. Yes, tama po yun. We cannot blame them criticizing the government kasi ito yung check and balances po natin sa performance ng ating gobyerno. Tama po. Kung wala nga namang mag-criticize, baka gawin na nga lang nila ang asal nila. Siyempre, pag may mga kritiko, mas lalong nag-iingat sila na wag gumawa ng mali. Yun po ang importante sa kung bakit po may mga ganun na mga kritiko ang ating gobyerno at pinapasalamatan po natin lahat ng mga kritikong ito kasi mas lalong ginagalingan ng ating gobyerno kung ano ang tamang dapat nilang gawin para masatisfy ang lahat.
Okay. Thank you so much to all the listeners. Magandang hapon po and hopefully mag-enjoy kayo sa ating Go ahead, Alvin.
So, mga kababayan, ang akin pong i-share ngayon, ang last words ko ngayon ay nalimutan ko. Pero pinapasalamatan ko po ang aking nanay ngayon kasi siya po yung talagang mas nakapag-explain sa akin kung ano nga ba ang isang babae. Ang isang babae ay hindi lang babae na manganganak, kapartner ng asawa, o domestic lang sa bahay. Hindi. Simula po nung nawala ang mga lalaki sa buhay ng nanay ko at kami po'y pinalaki niya mag-isa, siya na po yung tumayuring tatay ko. So, ibig sabihin, wala pong imposible. Kompleto ka pa rin kahit nanay mo na lang ang kasama mo. Alam nyo yan, kami hong mga lalaki, wala ho kaming tatakbuhan halos, laging nanay pa rin. Hindi ko alam, pero minsan sinasabing, mamas boy ka ba? Walang masama doon. Kasi yung nanay ko, babae, kaya niyang lahat gawin. Kaya niyang tumayo bilang lalaki rin. Kaya sa lahat po diyan ng mga babae na lumalapit sa akin at nagtatanong kung ano-ano pa. Hindi ho love life, minsan personal din. Kung mga single mom ka man ngayon, mga single moms po kayo ngayon, si Kaising po, yung nanay ko. Apat po kami magkakapatid, hindi po nag-abroad, naitaguyod po kaming lahat. Kami po ay natupad lahat ng pangarap namin. Kaya wala pong imposible sa inyo. Kung ano man pinagdaraanan nyo, ang isang babae ay pinagpala. Yan ang tamang salita. Maraming salamat.
Hindi lang nanay, hindi lang pati lola. Ako
Yes
nagsimula
po.
sa lola, sa nanay, yan ang bumuhay sa atin. Kaya nga, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat at huwag niyo kakalimutan, maghugas ng kamay, magdistansya at magkaroon ng unity and loving. Give love to everybody. We love you all and thank you so much to our guest, Chris Lovings. Magandang hapon po and enjoy your coming spring. Babalos.
Pinoy, ikaw ay Pinoy. Ipakita sa mundo kung ano ang kaya mo. Ibang-ibang